Okay, last Sunday, I gave a sermon about worship and offering. You remember that, right? Actually, it was a sermon about offering. I said worship is giving back to God what God has given to us. So it's a time for restoration and time for moment that we show expression of gratitude to God. So most important part of worship is offering that I shared the last week. I'm going to share one more time about offering, but don't be misunderstood. Even some people here today, first day our church, they think, oh, that pastor talk about money. It's not like that. During last 4 years, I never give a sermon about offering. You know that, right? And not just for 4 years. For last 15 years, I gave a sermon every Sunday, but I never gave a sermon about offering for last 15 years. Actually, there was a reason why I didn't do it. When I was a college student, there was a revival at our church. So guest speaker came, and revival was really great. That message was really touching. So first day, I felt a lot of things about Word of God when he gave a speech. So next day, I went to revival again. And before revival, before he gave a sermon, he got a lot of envelope. And he was reading the name of people. Steve Song gave offering today. Joy Park gave offering today. He was reading the names of people who gave a special offering. And it ruined my feeling. It ruined the whole message. I said, how can a pastor read the name of people who gave an offering during the service? And I was kind of angry. You know that's not the worst scenario, right? There's another Korean church or some other church, not only the name, they sometimes give a number of money that they said, the Hannah, you give today special offering $350 for this special revival. Sometimes they do that. I really don't know why they do it. And at that time, as a college, I couldn't understand that. So after worship, the college group gathered, and the college director, we started arguing each other. Then I said, that message was great, but why does guest speaker talk about people's name in the offering and ruin all the message, right? And then our college director tried to defend this guest speaker, and college director said, you don't have to focus on that. The message was good, just think about message, don't think about the part that they talk about money. But I was kind of angry at the time. So after heavy argument, I said like this, you know what? If I become a pastor, I will never give a sermon about offering. So I said to my college director at that time when I was in college, by saying that I made a too big mistake, you know that, right? What was the first mistake? Why did I say, if I become a pastor? How did I know that I would become a pastor? I really didn't mean anything at that time, but just I was angry that I said, if I become a pastor, I will never give a sermon about offering. And maybe that I become a seed and now I become a pastor. And second thing, I made my own commitment, personal commitment. I'm not going to talk about money during my message. I will not give a sermon about that. So for the last 15 years, I never gave a sermon about offering. But honestly, I knew I should have given. Because offering, as I shared the last week, is not about money. It's about spiritual practice. As I give a sermon about prayer, about reading the scripture, about loving each other, or about serving the other people. As I give a sermon about this all-important theme of Christianity, I'm supposed to give a sermon about offering because that's a very important spiritual practice in our life. A couple of years ago, I met one of my friend's pastor, and in our conversation, we just talked about sermon about offering. And my friends told me he gives a sermon about offering once a year. Every first Sunday of the year, he says he gives an offering because he wants to start the year with his members sharing the concept of offering. And I asked him, why do you do that? And then he looked back to me and stared at me, and he looked very curiously, and then he asked me, you really don't know the reason? And when he asked me like that, actually I was very ashamed, because I knew the reason. I knew that it was so important to sharing about offering, but I haven't done it, honestly, because I was a coward. The worst thing I want to hear, like if my friend said, oh, the pastor keep talking about money. I didn't want to hear that blame. I didn't want to hear that criticism. Because of that fear, I didn't do what I should have done. So today, as you know that church pass around the platform, this is also the first thing we have done, right? In the last 2 years, we haven't done it. But from next year, church leadership decide we will set up the budget and we will spend our money depending on our budget. So we want to know what's the church income for next year. And church leadership asked me about giving the offering, sermon about offering. So I thought, oh, this is maybe the chance at last that I might share some part of this offering. It might be in my life, because I have a lot of story about offering in my life. So it might be your last time you hear about offering, or maybe I don't know whether next year I'll give you one more time, but it will be very rare chance that you will hear the sermon about offering today. Okay? So my earliest memory about offering, I think I was a junior high school student. So I was a junior high or I was a high school either one. And at that time, our family finance was not that good. My father's business was bankrupt. And we had, at that time, about like $50,000 debt in our family. And my mother's salary about $1,000 per month at that time. And whenever, back then, by the way, they didn't get the salary through like, the check or transfer. They give cash. So my mother, whenever she received her monthly salary, cash $1,000, she always went to the bank and she changed the $100 bill as a new bill at the bank and put it aside, set aside in a separate envelope and put it in the drawer till the Sunday to give it to the offering. And I was, as I said again, I was only junior high. But at that time, already I felt that our family's finance crisis. So one day I went to mom, I told her like this. I didn't know how I did it, but I told her like this. Mom, I know that among your income $1,000, $500 automatically deducted because it's interest. We have a lot of debt. So the interest $500 already deducted. So actually, isn't our income only $500? Because $500 already deducted by the interest. So shouldn't you give only $50 instead of $100 for your tithe because our income is $500 already deducted by interest? And I said one more thing. Maybe because our debt is a family debt is $50,000, even if you earn the $1,000, still we are the minus. So that means maybe our income is zero. Practically, you didn't earn anything because whatever you earn is what is supposed to be paid, right? So mom, maybe you don't have to give that offering. Usually I was very bad for math, but I didn't know how I could calculate that way. But that's what I told mom, I think you shouldn't do that. My mother didn't reply me, she didn't say anything, but just she wasn't keep doing it. Later, when I grew older, I actually understood what my mom did at that time. She set aside some amount of her money for God, right? If you set aside something, that becomes special. If you set aside the money for your children's education, that money becomes education fund, right? If you set aside your time for special, like into golf or for computer game or basketball, whatever time you set aside for certain reason, that time becomes special. And if you set aside something for God, that becomes holy. Not just special, that becomes holy. That's the creation. When God created the world, everything was chaos. They were all mingled. The principle of creation was separation. God separated the light from the darkness, land from the water, and water from the water, man and woman. By separation, God made this world holy. So when you separate something for God, that becomes holy. So simply, what my mom did was practice holiness. We have 7 days, 168 hours in a week. It's not all of the time that you have it, but this day is holy because you set aside Sunday for Lord's Day. This 12:30 today, 1 hour among the 168 hour week. This hour is holy. Why this hour is holy? Because you set aside this hour specially for God. If you set aside something specially for God, either money or time or whatever you have, that become holy. And we're supposed to practice holiness in our life. You know, the Deuteronomy chapter 14:22, the first thing they talk about tithes in the Bible, the goal of tithe is very clear. It says like this. God says to Moses, be sure to set aside a tenth of all that your field produce each year. Why you need to set aside a tenth? Because you need to practice holiness in your life. That's what God said, so that you may learn to revere the Lord. By setting aside some part of your money, you will learn how to respect your God. That is the reason God asks people to set aside for us to practice holiness. So the first important part of the tithe, you can say, is about holiness, about life. By putting something set aside, that we make it holy. And later, the next memory of my, the offering. So I was serving at Navy, so I had my own saving. About at that time when I was Navy, I had my own saving account about $3,000. So that was all my life saving when I was about 25. And one day again, my mother and I, we went to the revival again. And the revival messages were really good. And it was not just revival, especially revival, special worship for church renovation. So they said the church needed to be renovated, and it was about the church renovation revival. And after worship, I don't know why, but I told my mom that, Mom, I'm going to give you $3,000 for offering. And she was shocked. And she just tried to make me calm down. So you just heard the word sermon that you don't have to give your whole life saving $3,000 because you heard the word sermon. Why you make that decision? And I answered it to my mom, Mom, I think I need a great favor from God. I want to live for God. I didn't mean being a pastor at the time, but I said, I want to live for God, and I want God to give me special favor. So this is my bride. I want to give everything what I have to God, and the rest of my life, I want God to take care of me. So I'm going to give this all I have to God, and God will take care of me rest of my life. And actually that's what God did. Rest of my life, God took care of me. Maybe it was decided in God's mind, okay, I'm going to make him a pastor, a professional clergy, because he gave everything he has to me. Maybe it happened that moment. And then my mother, she was surprised, but she was very touched by what I shared. So she said, if you make that commitment, give $3,000 for this special church renovation, I will give you $10,000. And now this time I told her, Mom, whoa, calm down. I have $3,000 in my saving, but you don't have anything. Actually, my mom didn't have any saving at the time. So don't make that big commitment. But she said, if you do $3,000, I will do $10,000. So my mom also made a commitment to give $10,000 for church renovation. Only difference, I couldn't give what I saved. I had already. But my mom didn't have anything. 3 months later, at that time, anyway, she retired already. She retired 6 months ago. So she didn't work, she didn't have any income. But 3 months later, she got a phone call from her previous job. And they said she worked there for 30 years. And then they miscalculate her salary small by the way. So they recalculated it. And they said the difference that they didn't pay was $10,000. So they just contacted her that, we look for you for a long time because we need to give you $10,000. What kind of company would do that, right? She already retired, and there's no reason they recalculate. Even if they recalculate, there's no reason they look for her to find her in the different address to provide this $10,000. But they did it. So my mother couldn't keep her promise to give to God $10,000. You know, what I want to say is this. God doesn't need your money. Let's make it very clear. Whether you give $10,000 or like $100,000, does it matter to God? What does God need? God wants to receive your heart. If you make decision, if you give your heart, the rest of them, God does provide. You even don't have to provide what you promise. God just wants to receive your promise and God will provide. It's very clear in Genesis chapter 22 about Abraham and Isaac. You know that God told Abraham, sacrifice your son Isaac. It's one of the most difficult requests that God gave to every human being, right? But God said to Abraham, sacrifice your son Isaac. Did God want Isaac? Did God really want that Isaac be burnt? What did God ask him? God wanted to see Abraham's heart. So Abraham decided, okay, if you tell me to do it, to sacrifice my son, I will do it. So he was walking to the mountain that God assigned to him to give a sacrifice his son. And on his way, actually his son, who didn't hear what father's plan was, he had no idea. Isaac had no idea that God told his father Abraham to sacrifice him. So Isaac now asked the father, Father, we're going for giving sacrifice to God. There's a firewood, but where's the lamb? What are you going to give a sacrifice? And Abraham answered to his son like this, Son, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering. So Abraham knew it already. Abraham knew that what God wanted is not my son Isaac. What God wanted is my heart, that I can even give my son to Isaac. But actually what I'm supposed to give is God will provide. God wants to see your heart. And then what you cannot follow, God will follow. You know, though, when you came to the United States, honestly, I'm actually sharing all my financial information today. It's very rare. I'm not supposed to do it, but yeah. My first income, my first church salary was $600 per month. So Hannah and I survived with $600 per month. That was a miracle. But I was a part-time youth pastor, and church paid me $600. And then one day, the same thing happened. Church said, church will go for the renovation. So special offering. And then I sat down together and said, church will go for renovation, how much shall we give? And it just came out from our heart, let's give $1,500. Can you imagine it that your salary was $600 and we decided to give $1,500? And did we have that money? No, we had a zero balance at that time. But Hannah and I just decided, okay, we'll give $1,500 for special offering. And we didn't have any idea how we can make that $1,500 to give a special offering. Same thing happened again. It's a long story, but we got something from grocery, and it was wrong, and I ate it, and I was sick, and eventually we got a compensation exactly $1,500. So for my wrong food poison, we got $1,500. So anyway, we got it. So and this is a long story. You should hear later the detail. But anyway, we could give that $1,500 to God. So that's good. We made a commitment, and God provided. And after that 4 years in Atlanta, we moved to the Oakland. And when I got a new job at the Oakland Korean United Methodist Church, my first salary was $1,500 per month. And I couldn't know it was God's answer. We answered God, okay, we want to give the $1,500 for special offering, and our first salary was $1,500. You know what I felt? Dang, we should have got $3,000. And my salary could be $3,000 for the first time. You know, this is what I shared a few months ago about Gitanjali, right? The Tagore, the Indian poet, he wrote this beautiful poem, Gitanjali, and then in the poem that he said like this, there was a beggar, and then the king visited the beggar. So this beggar expected, wow, it's a good day for me, king will give me a lot of gift. But instead of giving any gift to the beggar, king spread his hand and king asked, do you have something to give it to me? And beggar was really hectic. What kind of king is it that he opened his palm to the beggar to beg? So in his hesitation, next screen, in his hesitation, then he opened his bag and he took out the little grain of corn. Just, oh, you want me something? I have only small bag, and he took out the little grain, and he gave it to king. And that evening, he found that among his old grain in his bag, there is one little grain of gold. So he found exactly what he gave to king with his tongue aside, and his tongue as gold. And he regretted bitterly that I should have given more to king. So offering is like that. It's a path of blessing. Why do God keep asking us in the Old Testament every year, you should give an offering? Why do God keep asking it? You know, today's passage of Malachi, God's purpose is very clear. God says like this, ever since your forefathers, we are disconnected. You always turn aside from me. I want you to come closer to me. I already went closer enough to you. I gave my son. I did everything for you. Shouldn't you at least come closer to me one step? So God asked like this, you return to me first. I already returned to you. Now it's your turn. You return to me. Then I will return to you. So let's get closer. But you never made your step. You always keep sitting like a baby asking everything. I already gave you enough. But please come step forward to me. Return to me. And I will return to you. And people ask that, how are we returned? And God answered with a man rob God. That you ask, how do we rob you? In tithe and offerings. So this is a way that you can return to me. Next screen please. That bring the whole tithe and pass me in this. See if I will not pour out so much blessing that you will not have a room enough for you to put in. Okay, let me be clear again. God doesn't need your money. God doesn't need your time. Even if you pray for 24 hours, even if you give like $10,000 everything to God, nothing will not be changed in God. But why God asks you to bring it? Because God wants to receive your heart. And when you come closer to God by giving your heart, God says, if you return to me, I will return to you. And you will see that the reason I'm asking you to this, because if you do it, I want to bless you more. I want to bless you more. I want to go closer to you more. But at least, you should also respond a certain way closer to me. I want to bless you more. So offering and tithe, so all same. God wants to receive our heart. And God will provide everything. And when we give our heart through our expression of gratitude with what we have, God says that I will bless you more. That's my purpose. Now I need yours, but if you give me some, I want to give you more through it. So it is a path of blessing. You know, I haven't shared again a sermon about offering for a long time. And while I didn't do it, I had this heavy burden. This is a good news. Why am I not sharing it with my brothers and sisters? Because of my fear of blame that Pastor talking about money. But more important thing is, I want to share with you this good news. This is a good news from God that I want to go closer to you. You return to me and you give me, and that I will bless you. And I experienced it through my life. So I want to share this blessing with you because I want you to be blessed. Let's pray. Thank you for this morning that we shared about one of the messages in the Bible. There are a lot of different messages in the Bible: love, faith, hope, and also offering, and also all the things that we needed. God talk about that through the Bible. God's goal is very simple. God want to restore the relationship with us. God will be connected with us again, and God wants to bless God's children more through all different ways. And God asks us bring back what God has given, some portion. God will take the rest of them, will bless double or more than that, Lord. Let us rely on you. When we give you more, we become vulnerable. We don't have enough money to even manage our life. But by giving you more, let us practice the holiness. Let us practice to rely on God more, and let us go closer to God. In your name we pray.